Hello everyone, McDevitt here. Today I'm going to teach you how to use OBS and just what you need to know to be a streamer or a content creator on YouTube or any multitude of other websites. Just for the record, I am currently using OBS to record OBS. So we're going to click Settings, which you can also get by going to File, Settings. As you can see, File, Settings. We'll get into these other options here later, but File and Settings is what you want to know. All right, so you want to change the settings. If you're curious, this is what your OBS will normally look like, right? It kind of seems very standard on OBS Studio, as it's called. I just chose dark. I like it the most. It looks like it's a good theme. You can do a lot of stuff with it. All right. A few things that might be unchecked. I'm not positive because I haven't used it in a while. See, source alignment snapping. Maybe enable, maybe disabled. You can adjust the sensitivity here. I leave everything as it is because it's just what worked. Transition to scene when double-click to studio mode. We'll talk about that after. But pretty much when you're using studio mode, you just double-click a scene, it goes to it. That's pretty self-explanatory. What you won't have when you first start up OBS and you're trying to choose what you want is all of these other options, all of these other services. You'll just have this. And this is fine. If you're using Facebook Live or Restream or Live EDU or Twitter, or YouTube Gaming, all that, or Twitch. But if you want to have all the other options, you can. However, you can also do custom streaming server, put the URL in the stream key. You'll get that from YouTube if you go to your dashboard if you want to use it, etc. thing. That's neither here nor there. All right, awesome. Output. This is what's important. And I want you to understand why this is important. So we're actually going to swap this to what my normal settings are so you can kind of get a good idea of what looks good and what looks bad and everything. So what you're going to have when you're streaming or when you're first starting out is it will look a lot like this. It'll be in simple, all right? You can set the bit rate and all that jazz, but you'll have a few options. If you have an NVIDIA or a AMD graphics card, you'll have a couple more here besides X264. But if you have an FX or like you have an AMD processor with no graphics, or you have an Intel processor, aside from Intel QuickSync, the QuickSync H264 for Intel, you're not gonna have anything for AMD. That's fine though. If you have a good CPU and you can game on it and stream at the same time, you're fine with X264. But if you have a graphics card and you're recording videos especially, the encoder, the H264 encoder is actually God, or it is really, really good. Or the NVENC from NVIDIA encoder, it's wonderful. Now, what most people are going to be streaming at and should be streaming at is 720, 60 FPS. The reason I say that is because most people cannot watch a 1080p 60 FPS stream, especially on Twitch, because their bandwidth cannot take it. Because the average user in the States does not have very good internet. Plus, data caps is another thing. And if you're not a partner or you're not an affiliate who doesn't have transcodes, you're pretty much your viewer's gonna have to watch you at source quality. With YouTube, it's a little bit of a different story. I'm not too familiar with YouTube live streaming, and I'm not gonna lie. But let's get into it. X264 is where you're going to want to be. Okay, there's many reasons for that, but basically the best one is it's the best quality. It's going to come out of your CPU. You will want to use rescale output so you don't screw up your scenes when you're in video, but in case you don't set it there, actually I always just leave it as in here and always just check it so I always know it's checked. Cool. Rate control, CBR, constant bit rate. This is important. I saw another tutorial where they used VBR, a variable bitrate, or CRF, sorry, of 22. I believe, shout out to Synapse, he did really good with that. I just use CBR. It works best for me. And that's a constant bitrate of 3500. You could experiment with VBR, but let's leave it at CBR and experiment with what works. For Twitch, they up their transcodes and their max bitrate to 6 megabits per second, or roughly 6,000 for your kilobits per second bitrate. I go 3500. Sometimes I go 4500 and drop it down to a buffer size of 2500. Your keyframe intervals should always be 2, but if it's not, you set it to 0, but I always leave it as 2. This is the important part. Depending on your CPU and depending on how many computers, if you're using one or if you're using 2 or more computers to stream, you should only really be using 2 if you have the setup for it and if you can have a capture card. The higher your CPU usage, CPU usage preset, the less CPU you have to use at the cost of choppiness and lag and pixelation and whatnot in your frames. And the higher your bit rate has to go to accommodate that, to make it not look as bad. Very fast is the medium average. Everyone should just choose it unless they have a secondary computer. And if they do, fast, faster, and medium, or faster, fast, and medium are the ones you'll want to go with. Slow is if you have a top-of-the-line CPU. I have never seen anyone use placebo or very slow or even slower. The slowest I've seen people go is slow, but that's because your CPU is doing a crap ton of work. Even on my i7-3930K, which is a true 6-core CPU, one of the first ones out there, super enthusiast back in the day, I could only get away with using medium. I tried slow, it just would lag constantly. I like to use profile on high, but lately when I was doing my last streams on this computer, I did main. Tune, just leave that alone, don't really understand it. And X264 options, you can find out on the OBS forums, and you can find out what that does. But that's neither here nor there. All right, awesome. Next up, we're going to go to recording. Now, this is the important part, okay? And the reason why I bring this up is because if you're recording with if you're recording with your computer, right? You're recording footage with your computer. You're going to want to, I meant with your graphics card, sorry. You're going to want to choose recording, and then you want to set your bit rate to whatever works for you. If you have the hard drive space, do 50,000. That's 50,000 kilobits a second. That will look amazing, especially at 1080p 60 FPS. 720/60, you could get away with, you could probably do 20,000 or 10,000 and it'll look just fine. But, I'm not going to get into what all this means, but I like to stick to that. You could also do ink distinguishable, you could do a bunch of different stuff, but I like to just leave it as recording, or I like to leave it as recording. I just go with 10,000. It looks fine. You could uprate it to get higher, but really, it's a YouTube video. It downscales quality anyway. So you want to have as high as the quality as you can without, completely tanking your hard drives. Also, you need higher write hard drives as well. Don't write to an SSD when you're recording. Just don't. It's not worth it. But yeah, I use H.264 AVC encoder. This video might be recorded with X264. I don't know for sure. But yeah, if you ever have an issue where it's saying CPU usage preset overloaded and you're, whatever, just drop stuff down. Like, drop your settings, but that's, whatever. Audio. I had a friend who was recording at 160 or 192 for his bitrate. I told him to change everything to 320, and it sounded a lot better. The lowest I will ever recommend someone to go is 256. Maybe 224, but 256 should be your absolute minimum, especially because people, would rather hear good quality audio than see great quality video. So just keep that in mind. All right. Replay buffer. I don't know a whole lot about it, but yeah, your output mode will be set to simple. You could set this again, but I leave it as advanced because I like to tinker with things. Also have your recording path set, blah, 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 blah. Great. Okay. Next up, audio itself. Here's the important steps. You're going to want to set your sample rate to 48 kilohertz. The reason for that is it's higher quality. It's higher quality bitrate. It'll just sound better. 44.1, which is an option here, is what CD quality is. 48 is DVD quality. That's what it says in Windows anyways. But yeah, you'll want to set your bitrate or your sample rate to 48. And you can adjust that by going into Playback Devices. So you go down here where your sound is, and you'll right click and choose. Comes up, might not. If it doesn't, I apologize. Doesn't really matter. But you're going to want to set that Playback Devices to be 48. You can check that by right clicking. Now my sound card might not even do it. I don't know. Sometimes stuff could be done. Oh, here it is. Okay, it opened up. To open 2 or 1, doesn't matter. So you'd right click, you would go to properties, you then go to advanced, and I have it marked off because again, it's set based on some software. But as you can see, advanced, this is my sound card. You can see 48, there's 44.1, there's 48, etc. Okay. I don't know if OBS can go up to 96 or 128 kilohertz. That's neither here nor there. 48, you're golden. Make sure your channels are set to stereo. That's, if you have the ability to do 7.1 and your viewers can listen to it, it's going to be rare, but stereo is best, especially if you're streaming, you know, for people who have phones or whatever. Okay. Speakers or desktop audio device. This will be, it's going to be set to default. Just choose the one that you're going to be listening to it on. If you have a headset and you're, you know, want to play your music, I'm not going to get into virtual audio cables or any of that stuff today. That's not this tutorial. Ideally, just have it set to whatever you're using as a default. Now, the reason I have it turned off, mostly because I'm just lazy. But, you know, once I disable it and go back, see, it got rid of it. Okay, cool. So I have a desktop audio device set to line, and then that's line 4, my Steinberg UR22 Mark II. I am using an SM58, that's neither here nor there, but I'm just telling you, if you want these options, just stick, you're going to want an XLR setup, but again, we're getting into the basics of streaming, especially if you're using a laptop or whatever. Then you'll set your mic / auxiliary device. That will be, you know, if it's the same sound card or whatever, that will you'll set to that. But if you're not, it will have like Realtek, or I'll have a bunch of other options. Doesn't matter. I don't really know what Audiometer K rate does. You can look it up if you're so inclined. You can have up to 3 or devices, I think. This is where you could set push to talk delay if you really wanted, or push to mute. You could set that up in there. I know some streamers do use it. Video. This is important. Okay, so when you're streaming, and for my computer, for example, has an i7 4770K. When I was streaming from this computer, the only game I couldn't really play on here and stream at the same time was The Division and high CPU usage stuff, like basically, at 720/60. So I had to drop that down to 30. And even then I had to drop some other stuff down. Ideally, the reason why I leave base output resolution as 1920 by 1080 is because that's what pretty much all monitors are going to have. And if you get custom scenes from websites, you're going to want to leave it as that. And, you know, if you're sharing your scenes with other people or whatever, and you want to have that saved and you want people to be able to use it, you want to use it on a different computer, etc., just leave it as that. Even if your monitor technically isn't 1080, if you leave it as that, you can adjust it. You can, you know, rescale your monitor, or you can rescale your OBS and all that jazz, and you can make it do whatever. But that's, you know, just leave it as that. Now, your output scale resolution, this is why I was referring to your output again when I said set this rescale output to 720p. Or if you have a pretty good computer, you could do 810, but yeah, just do 720p if you want to be safe. And then you go in video, you set your, I think it will be set to common. It might be set to 29.97 or 30. Just set it to 30 or 60, depending on your processor. If you wanted to set it to 120, you would go integer FPS value fractional. Don't even know what the hell that would do, but yeah, pretty standard. If you want to have any questions, go find them. Hotkeys. Okay, so your hotkeys are as followed. So when you're using, if you want to set a hotkey, you know, I used to have num1, which was numpad 1 and numpad 3 as my stop streaming, and my start recording was num4 and num5. I'm not going to press those because that will activate them. You have many different things here for all your sources and whatnot, and they can do all that stuff. Great. Advanced. This is kind of important, kind of not. I always have it, my process priority set to above normal. Ever since I learned about it, I've just been doing it, and it has not failed me. Knocking on wood. Process priority, set that to normal or above normal. Sometimes set it to high, but I always go with above normal and leave it at that. Direct 3D11, I don't know if it ever does OpenGL, but that's fine. I'll leave it at that. Color format, I just leave it MV12. You can experiment, and, you know, color space, set that 709 or 601, doesn't really matter. I can show you the capture card, but not right now. YUV color range, just leave it at full. Audio monitoring device, if you really want to monitor your audio, you could do it there, but I would just leave that alone. This is where you would adjust your file formatting. It will actually tell you what it does. And so if you want it, this is just when you're recording videos. An example of that would be this. So this is basically what it does. That's a video, by the way, that's actually recording right now. This would be the 201, 03, 13, 05. This is just a, I'm not even sure what that is, but you know, you can see that's what it does. And then you hover over it, it gives you the time that it was recorded. Okay, or the timing of it. Enable network, new network code and low latency mode. Truthfully, I don't ever use these. I think I might have used them in the past, but I haven't used them in forever. All right, so now we've gotten to all to that. Talk about your streaming services. So if you, again, your custom streaming service, I might have mentioned it. I was trying to do this in another tutorial. Put your stream key in here that you get from your Twitch dashboard or your YouTube gaming or whatever, and set that YouTube gaming only has 1 and 2 primary servers. Twitch has a lot more. You basically find all that shit there. Okay, great. We're gonna hit cancel because I don't want to save anything. Okay, so this is your scenes, and as you can see, it's doing some cool effects. This is called Luma Wiping. You also have cuts, so you could just cut to it. You also do a fade. You can adjust the duration that you want it. So if you want it, say, let's say 700 milliseconds, we can have a slighter fade or whatever we want. Let's say 1100 milliseconds. It looks kind of weird, but you can do some cool stuff with it. But I like to have, let's say 750. You can also adjust that. So we'll do a 750, and we're going to do a Luma Wipe on that. Now we can go into here. We can rename it to be whatever, but I just leave it as Luma Wipe so I know what it is. Hit properties, and then you can adjust this to, there's other things you can get to, but yeah, you can invert to watercolor. You can change the softness. There you go. And if you want it to be almost immediately, just set to 10 milliseconds. It gets rid of the effect, but, 300, though, looks like this. Oh, I put 3000 in. So if you wanted a long delay, that's what it would look like. My bad. All right. Cool. So now what we're going to do is you can also set your display capture. So if you wanted to show the other display, might kill my thing. Yeah. Okay. So you can see that's why I've been recording. We're going to go back to this one. I capture cursor. If it ever has an issue with it, sometimes I just delete the scene. I just delete the source entirely and just start again. Okay, so we'll talk about the next part, which is adding a scene. How do you add one? We'll just call it scene 2, doesn't really matter. Right-click, add source, and you have a bunch of options here. Appreciated, well, clearly they're no longer used. Mostly what you're going to be using is game capture. Make sure you press Control F, or you can just right-click on the scene or right-click on the source, and you could just go transform and fit to screen. So that's our game capture. We can delete that. If the capture doesn't exist, you would actually type it out, and then you would click this. You would choose capture any specific, capture any full screen application. Doesn't always work. I always go capture specific window, and then you would say, let's choose calculator for the hell of it. Probably won't work, but got a calculator there. If for some reason it doesn't show up, some windows don't ever work. If for some reason it just doesn't show up, what you want to do is literally just press the literally you just want to press it, but it only really works mostly for games. If you wanted it to come up as a game, like a window, because sometimes you only can do window captures, just choose window capture and then choose Discord. It's not going to show that. WoW 64. Some games, when they're in window mode, will work as a capture. Again, it's pretty much it's not rocket science, but yeah. If you want to have a scene on it, or if you want to have filter, sorry, and we'll get into that next, you can apply a filter. I'll actually show you a filter I use, and this was my work layout. Just use sharpen. I learned that you can adjust it to 4 or whatever. If you add too much sharpness, it looks pretty awful. Got a cool effect to it, but just 3 will give it a slight, or 3 or 4. We'll give it a slight amount of sharpness just to make it pop a little bit more. Okay, so if you wanted to add your webcam, all that stuff, you go add, and then you go video capture device, and then you would choose, I call it Webby. It's not going to pop up right now, but you have your options in here, and you can choose. Let's say I want to choose this Tridest Smart Cam, or I want to choose, so we know it's something. This is Droidcam 1. Doesn't always work. Or Droidcam source. If you have 2 versions of OBS running, like 2 copies of it running, it's just not gonna, show up on there. So take it out with a grain of salt. Sometimes sources it can be finicky. Okay, lastly, let's talk about my favorite section, which is audio filters. Now, on every single audio source in your mixer, you can actually add a VST, and a VST is Virtual Studio something. It's basically, think of it, Virtual Studio technology. So In this case, on every single track I have a bit of compression. And let me just show you what happens when we take off the compression versus when we have it on. Actually, I don't know. That might kill it. Yeah, I don't really want to do that right now. I'll just record something really quick here. Oh my god, it might actually kill things. Let's just check real quick. I want to just demonstrate what happens when you take off all of your features on this. Oh, this is going to be fun. Let's just do... Oops. Again, don't do this because you might screw up stuff. But anyways, we'll just do... Live queue. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog in the summertime. Then we'll apply the filters now. Go add all that back. So we added gain, we've added compression, we added gate, and we added more compression. I'll talk about that in a second here. We'll just go. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog in the summertime. Now keep in mind, I was running a second instance of OBS while I did this, and I recorded with it. So I hit stop recording. Sometimes things freeze. Sometimes recordings will get corrupt. It's not always ideal. But sometimes it happens, and it sucks. It sucks. But always have, backup plans and everything, especially if you're recording, like, footage. Yeah, that's neither here nor there. Once it stops, I'll show you guys some stuff. All right, so I talked about studio mode for a second there. This is studio mode. Studio mode allows you to make scenes on the fly. So we're gonna go to game. All right, we click game, and we'll be right back into studio mode. So if I wanted to make some adjustments, so as you can see, I'm double clicking, and that's actually putting those on to studio mode. So if I forgot to click it, I could just click studio mode. So we'll go back to YouTube. It'll still be there. So if you're in studio mode, you'd have to actually double click for that scene change to happen, or go back to it normally. And what's great about studio mode, like I said, is if you want to be adjusting, you want to have a guest coming on, and you wanted to set them up or whatever, but you still want it to be on your AFK screen, you have that option. I got rid of my AFK video. I used to have this really cool one, but I think I just completely nuked it. But that's something you can do when you're doing that. Now, the next thing we'll talk about is your sources. Specifically with sources, a browser source. And let me just show you events list for a second here. So events list, this is your events list, right? This is a Twitch specific feature, but this is your events list, okay? So what you could do in this events list is, you can set that. And what this will do is it'll give you a URL, and it kind of just gives you when you have a host or you get bits or whatever on Twitch, or you can set it for YouTube. But you would get twitchalerts.com. It'll give you a widget. Same thing with Streamlabs, all that jazz. You can adjust the CSS, which is custom script. I think, I don't know what CSS, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, just set this whatever it tells you to set. And, you can put other stuff in here, and you can make it do some cool stuff. If you want CSS elements can really, really make a website pop, or really make a stream pop. But yeah, it's pretty much the end of the tutorial. Oh, I guess I could show this real quick. I was referring to filters. So I took those ones off. You have these different options. You have a compressor, and a compressor looks like this. I'm not actually going to use it. This is your compressor. Ratio. I'll talk about a plugin in a sec here that will make it a lot better. This is a compressor. I don't really like OBS's default, so yeah, we're just not going to use that. You also have a gain, which you clearly see there. I always do a 3. It just makes sense. Noise gate. Again, I personally do not like using their noise gate. I use a different VST or plugin for that. Noise suppression, same thing. I have all of these set with my own stuff. So I'm actually not going to create a new one. We're going to go to compressor, and this is what I was referring to. This is called TDR Koltnikiv. As you can see, when I talk, my mic will do some cool stuff. Now, I do mastering warm. There's a reason I do that. It just sounds better to me. But if you see, if I go punchy, it will do it a little bit faster, and you adjust your threshold as such. Mastering warm. It makes it nicer and a bit of it. You can also add output, so you can up the dB a little bit further. I will do 2 of that. I'll do 2 And then I'll do a gate, and that's using a thing called Ria Gate, which is Reaper. I'll do Ria Gate standalone, and I kind of just adjust it to where my voice sits. So now I have 34.6. This sounds good, and I get rid of any fan noise in the background. See? Dead quiet. I did that for a very specific reason. I hated having fan noise in my recordings. Okay, so let's add a VST here, VST2 plugin. You can rename it to whatever. Now, when you have it, you probably won't have many. These are all the VSTs I have. This will probably crash OBS, but let me show you when you add Ozone 8, for example. Ozone 8 is wonderful. Not enough people know about it that are in this world. In the audio production world, many people know about Ozone. It's not a free plugin. Oh, we crashed OBS. Ignore. Sometimes that happens. So you won't actually be able to hear any of the quality differences in there. But let me just rerun it. It's going to freeze my thing down. I don't know why it does this, by the way. Sometimes you get this issue too. I know I said I was going to make this as a quick tutorial over stuff you don't need, but I figured I'd just do a complete guide to everything. All the questions people are going to ask you or you're going to have or whatever, and I just wanted to cover all of it. You know, so my FPS has dropped down, by the way, significantly. And then it shoots back up. OBS just loves to boot really low on my computer, and then it gets progressively faster or whatever. I don't fully understand it, and I'm not going to pretend I do. But yeah, if you ever have issues with it, it can be a bitch to work with. Oh, and by the way, if anybody wants to know my opinion on Streamlabs OBS, I hate it. I absolutely hate Streamlabs OBS. I think it's the worst piece of software ever implemented, and it's too limited in what it does. But, and that's neither here nor there. All right, let's go back to our YouTube. Get rid of our events list. We don't need that anymore. That's another thing that happens with OBS too, is it will actually freeze and stops working with things. So again, another reason I hate it. But I was actually trying to just demonstrate that piece of software. So I'll just open up, I can't do Pro Tools. I will open up Reaper, actually, which is a great VST, but that's not here. This wasn't initially part of the thing, but I just want to show you what Ozone 8 does to your audio. It sounds extremely awesome, and what it can do. I'll load up a file here, and this isn't part of the tutorial normally. This is just me kind of dicking around and showing some stuff. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look for Ozone 8 by Isotope, and this is out of the area of expertise with Twitch, but it can do some cool shit. So what we're gonna do is, don't mind the crappy sounding guitar work, but we're gonna hit Master System, we're gonna do streaming, and it's gonna actually listen to the audio that I have here. It's gonna find the best settings, but you know what, let's just give a live demonstration of it. So we'll just go File, New Project, call that, and we'll just load up this real quick. We'll just go start recording, we'll just hit record. No tracks are on for record, you can continue. Okay, we'll just create a new track. This is not part of the tutorial. I want to make that abundantly clear. But we're gonna hit, the quick round fox jumps over the lazy dog in the summertime. Okay, so we have that, right? That's good. Apply the FX again. I could also show you Ozone 7. This is Ozone 7 if you can afford the older version of it. It's still a really good software, VSTs. But again, this just has, I just like Ozone 8 a lot more. It does some cool stuff with it. And preferably, I actually prefer the other version. But this is stuff you can do with your stream if you want to make some cool shit. And people don't fully understand this. And what you can do is you can apply this to your effects. We're going to go listen to that. Ground fox jumps over the lazy dog in the summertime. Ground fox jumps over the lazy dog in the summertime. Ground fox jumps over the lazy dog in the summertime. Ground fox jumps over the lazy dog in the summertime. Ground fox jumps over the lazy dog in the summertime. Ground fox jumps over the lazy dog in the summertime. Ground fox jumps over the lazy dog in the summertime. Ground fox jumps over the lazy dog in the summertime. So without it on, we'll turn it off. Ground fox jumps over the lazy dog in the summertime. So just imagine that on your stream. Just imagine that on your stream and what you can do with that. And the amount of effects that you can do with OBS is astounding. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to cover. There's many more things you can do. Again, there's plenty of tutorials out there for like advanced stuff. So with your scenes and everything, how you can make stuff transform in a different way, and you can make more of a show. But really, you know, what you're doing is think of it like Photoshop for a second, or GIMP or whatever. You're layering different parts of your scene or your work to make something different out of it. So you could have the colors, which would be your gameplay or whatever. Then you add your, you know, your extra add-ons and whatnot to make it pop a little bit more, your alerts and things. And then you can add even more to that to make it work really, really well. And that is, I don't know what the hell's going on in this chat. I'm not even paying attention. But yeah, that's basically the gist of it. OBS is a great program, and it offers many, many, many things to content creators, but it's really for them to find out. There are tutorials upon tutorials upon tutorials for you to, you know, learn things. For example, if you want to add a capture card, sometimes the best option is to do game capture or window capture on it, or display capture and crop that out. If you want to record, but other times it might just take it as a video capture device, as I showed you with the webcam. So there's a lot of different things you can do. The last thing, I want to talk about was cropping. So as you can see, we have our display capture here, right? So this is why I don't like Streamlabs OBS. It's very simple. You cannot actively get this little, you know, you can't change and transform different objects. And to me, that's a failure of a program. But anyways, what you could do, you could either right-click the image, you can have it lock the preview, so if you don't want to have anything, you can also preview scale, but that's, no. You would go into a scale filtering, you can, you know, change that to whatever, but that's not, again, what we're doing. What we're doing is I wanted to talk about what I think a lot of people will find useful in OBS. Well, order, you can control up or control down when you're on the source, but this is, I think, the important part. Edit / transform. I like to set that, stretch the bounds, whatever. I like to set this to no bounds, so you're not stuck with things. You can change the personal alignment to center, or to bottoms right, or whatever, top left, and you can crop it. So, for example, if you had a webcam and you wanted to crop your webcam, you could do that. You can do some cool stuff with this. You can just reset it. So, you know, you can change that. And that's kind of a recognized, or it's like it's an underrated feature that people take for granted, but some softwares don't even have it. You know, video editors do, but some just don't. So, like, if you want to do all your editing inside of OBS, I mean, you have those options. You can layer things. You don't have to worry about Chroma Key too much. I mean, there's many, many things. Now, you're probably saying, oh, how would I Chroma Key something? It's very simple. You choose what you want. So, Webby, filters, and you would do a color correction. You would do a color key or Chroma Key. And you would choose the color you want, and that will get rid of that color. You would just adjust your similarity to whatever. Same thing, audio video filters. This is where you can do kind of a video delay. You can do, you can add the VSTs and stuff to it, but that's for audio. The only video filter they have is the delay. So those are all, that's basically a crash course in OBS. It's a long, and I mean a long haul to get into, but the long and the gist of it is, if you wanted to hit record and start recording today, here's what you do. Very simply. But okay, go add, go display capture. Okay, you've set your display. Great, cool. You want to set your microphone. You go into your settings. You go to audio, set your settings, blah, 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 blah. Go to video, set your settings, set your output. So you set your stream key, whatever the hell that is. And bam, you're good to go. That's it. So that's what you do. Your profile. You can create a new profile. This is what the profiles are. You can export them as well. You wanted, so I've referred to, if you wanted to share your scenes, you can also manually back it up if you're so inclined. Scene collections. you can actually collect your scenes and you can do whatever, and you can have your own like separate scenes. So let's say we wanted to create news, and we'll just call this temp. We can now create, provided it works and doesn't crash, we can now create a multitude, it doesn't crash, of scenes and scene collections and stuff. But I think you get the gist of it. I think you guys understand what you can do with OBS. Again, there are many tutorials on how to do text and how you can do so many other things. But I just wanted to get into you starting up your stream with your webcam, with your gameplay and your microphone, and going live. Or you starting up your videos and stuff. Because, you know, you're limited by your creativity and your imagination. That's it. You could follow what other people are doing, or you could follow your own thing, and you maybe could find something cool. I didn't know about the VST support. It didn't even come in until like a year ago or a year and a half ago. But once they implemented it, I was blown away with what you could do. And very quickly, the program I was referring to, like I said, was TDR Cognitive or whatever. I always pronounce it wrong. But Tokyo Dawn Records, it's a free mastering VST compressor. Does so much with it. Honestly, just set the presets, see what fits your voice, and everything like that. It also works with the AAX, which is Pro Tools, on 64-bit. The other one I was talking about was Rhea. This was the Reaper plugins. I mentioned Reaper. I use it. I also use Bitwig Studio, but you know, neither here nor there. Rhea plugins will give you a Rhea compressor. So if you wanted to use their own compressor, you could do that. There's two of them. There's a delay. There's EQ. There's refer, which is FFT, which is great. Gate. Stream. This allows you to stream host audio and or MIDI over a LAN segment. So this allows you to stream your audio to a different thing if I'm using NDI. But I might do a tutorial on NDI one day. But just right now. JS is an effect processor. Control MIDI. I mean, these are all free plugins. This is stuff you had to use to pay for before. And the program itself, which comes with it, it's $60 for a discounted license. And you can use it if you're an individual, and Reaper only is for your personal use. You're an individual or business using Reaper commercially, and yearly gross revenue does not exceed $20,000, or you're an education or a nonprofit organization. I mean, that's not per year. That's $60 forever. So, you know, and you can download and evaluate it. You get 60 days for free. It's on Windows and Mac. If it was on Linux, it would be my preferred DAW. It's not, so I'm stuck. But it does work well with Wine. And Wine stands for Windows Non-Emulator. It's the, you know, you can emulate it on Linux, and it works quite well. That's it. That's the entire tutorial I wanted to cover. That's everything you need, your crash course into OBS. Any other questions? Honestly, I didn't talk about captions or automatic scene switchers or anything like that. And if you ever have any issues, go to help, log files, and you can take a look at your log files and upload this to the forum. But that's it, man. That's OBS in a nutshell. That's everything, every single thing you ever needed to know about OBS to become a content creator today, pretty much. Oh, and if you forget to do this, like I do, like an idiot, make sure to remix your files. It makes it readable in Premiere as an MP4. Just thought I'd let you know that too. I forgot to mention it. Advanced audio properties. If you're like me and you have a XLR microphone and your channel always comes in stereo, make sure to always click this down mix to mono. It will save you a lifetime of headaches. So yeah, I've got nothing else to say, man. Your world is your oyster, and I wish you all the best. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.